So you want to see the bulk of your leads being in that follow-up, moving into that offer stage, because ultimately if you're keeping them in certain statuses, and it moves towards building a consistent pipeline of being able to predict your income, right? And if you don't have enough leads in follow-up, then you know that you're not going to be making enough offers and ultimately not getting enough contracts.
What's up, y'all? You're listening to the Carrot Cast podcast, the podcast with a funny name but a big mission. We help thousands of real estate investors and agents grow rock-solid mindsets, do better marketing so that you can build a business of freedom and impact. I'm your host, Trevor Mock. Let's dive into today's episode. What's up, guys? We've got Mr. Carlos Zamora, John Whitfield, and Bo Hollis. And Bo's going to do a double header here. He's going to be doing this session and staying on for the next session with John Martinez on negotiation. And guys, we've had thousands that have been coming in and out of the summit. I'm going on 20 hours of streaming right now, which is awesome. And this session here, we've talked a lot about marketing. We've talked a lot about how to get the leads through Evergreen, online Evergreen. We've talked about direct mail, driving for dollars, creative finance, all those types of things. So what I want to talk about in this session is really what happens when the lead comes in, right? So when the lead actually comes in the door, how do we follow up with them well? And we brought Bo on here for that in the streets investor perspective of this is what I do to close them really well. And here's what you say, or here's what to put in the message. And we brought the Investor Fuse guys on. So if any of you guys were on earlier when we did the product vision announcement, Investor Fuse is now a part of the Carrot ecosystem. It's part of the Carrot family. And John is the CEO of Investor Fuse and the original CTO of that company. And he stepped in there about a year and a half ago. And it's been really, really cool seeing what's been happening since then. And Carlos heads up the sales side, the marketing side, kind of a jack of all trades, possibly the customer success training side as well. It's like Carlos is the guy if you want to talk to someone about the product, about Investor Fuse. You're probably going to be chatting with him, seeing him out of Mastermind, seeing him in content. So welcome to the summit, guys.
Thank you. It's great to be here and great to share some of our data and I don't want to call it secrets, but definitely some data to help people. And so I think, I have a little bit of a presentation. I want to get through some information to share. And then, we can kind of open up the floor for Carlos and Bo as well to just kind of talk tips and tricks and stuff like that. But I like to, I want to reframe follow-up because most people think of it as being the most unglamorous thing about this business because it doesn't get really talked about. So if you could share my screen, can I do that? There it goes. Look at that. Here we go. All right. So if you go and look at normal reports that you would see out of a CRM, you're probably used to seeing a kind of pipeline view that looks like this. Okay. And up at the top, you've got new leads. And then in the middle, you'll have follow-up. And then you'll have some offers. And then you'll have your deals, right? So when you look at a chart like that, what is the most important thing that you should be doing according to the graphical representation of that chart? I don't think I could see comments, but I don't know, Carlos, Bo, you guys can chime in. What seems to be the most important thing?
Pop it in there. So what is the thing that it looks like we should be spending more time on potentially, right?
Yeah. It looks like the biggest thing, right? The thing at the top. Looks like new leads are super important.
Yep.
But something that we've really figured out here at Investor Fuse, and I can't take all the credit for this. We have a customer, his name's Brandon Peterson. I put his Instagram up there if you want to follow him because he's awesome. He kind of walked me through this, and this is how he shows his team how to build their pipeline. And it ends up kind of looking like this. All right. So we say, our new leads. Well, let me draw like a line first. All right. So if we take our new leads are right here, okay? because really, when you look at your active pipeline, you don't want to see anything in the status of new leads, because that means you have not touched that lead. You've not called them. You've not texted them. You want everybody to be removed out of that new lead status. And what ends up being the bulk of what you see in your CRM is follow-up. And then you'll have, a few offers and offer follow-ups hanging out over here in the corner. And then you'll finally have your deals down here.
And John, with that graphic there for people looking at this, is that representing, like, if you had, let's pretend that, each one of those buckets, those boxes represents X amount of contacts in that stage. Is that kind of what you're representing? Is if you're
yes.
CRM, cool. So most of those leads would be in follow-up. A lot would be in offer, but haven't turned into a deal yet. A lot of them are in follow-up that haven't turned into offers yet. Some new leads coming in, but we need to get things through follow-up and offer to deals more.
Exactly, because it ends up looking like a curve. So you want to see the bulk of your leads being in that follow-up, moving into that offer stage, because ultimately, if you're keeping them in certain statuses, and it moves towards building a consistent pipeline of being able to predict your income, right? And if you don't have enough leads in follow-up, then you know that you're not going to be making enough offers and ultimately not getting enough contracts locked down. And it's funny because most of the people that post and say the celebratory things on the internet, they're over here, right? How many new leads they got in and how many deals. And you don't get to see the grind, right? The amount of phone calls that it takes, the amount of time that people are consistently following up on these deals. So just wanted to reframe that first before I give you guys some data about what actual follow-up looks like for our customers, to help you understand how important that follow-up is. And I really challenge you to do this with your own leads that you have. Just, export them from the system or just write it down and kind of make bar graphs. Like, how many do I have in new lead? How many do I have in follow-up? How many do I have in offers? And kind of see where your active opportunities are falling. And it will help you kind of understand, okay, am I following the progression of making sure that I can move towards getting deals under contract and having enough in follow-up? But here, let me switch over to the data here and we can kind of start diving into what good follow-up really looks like. So this is just a couple stats about us. So we're from founded in 2015. We're a staff of 9 people here at InvestorFuse. And we're on our 3rd version, which is incredible and people are loving. And we have over 70 plus integrations, including Carrot, which is pretty sweet. So,
dude, we've got Sean that just popped in and said, IF3 is great. I love it.
Love it. So what I'm going to show you guys is follow-up data. There's data from 10 teams that made over $2.5 million in profit last year. Okay, so this is kind of summing up some of their data to show you what is the best of the best doing and what should I try to replicate in my system, in my CRM. So looking at weekly activity, they're only averaging 30 new opportunities a week. Not hundreds, not thousands, just 30. They're doing 212 completed actions, and I'll talk about what actions means to us here in a minute. But basically that means that they are taking significant steps with sellers 212 times a week. Okay. And then touches, they're doing 1,292 touches. And touches can be summed up as an action, can be a text message, can be a phone call, can be an email. It's any way that you're interacting with that seller. Now, an action-based system for us means that every opportunity, and an opportunity is just a seller plus a property, has one action on it at a time, and only one action. And it's always the next most important thing that you need to be doing for that seller. And the advantage to a system like that, and as far as I know, we're the only ones out there that treat things like this, is that when you look at your actions, you automatically know how you and your staff are doing. If they're overdue, then that means that's a seller that has not been touched and is hanging out there, and maybe some other wholesaler is going to get that deal. So when we look at an action-based system and I go and look at these top 10 teams, this is what kind of the breakdown is for them. They have 287 total actions live in their team. And I'll show you here a pie graph in a little bit that shows you just how many total opportunities they have versus active opportunities. And that's where that 287 number comes into play. There's 77 overdue, and you can see the little text underneath there. It shows you the low and highs from the 10 kind of averages. The low is 4, and that's what I'd love to see. Because if there's only 4 overdue actions, then you're really staying on top of your pipeline and your follow.
Dude, the one with 216, man, we need to get that person's phone number.
I know. Yeah. And then due today, I think I looked at this like super early in the morning before anybody could do anything. And, 13 is the average. People aren't trying to slam in a ton of activity because they're trying to have meaningful relationships and build rapport with these sellers instead of just having quick conversations with their sellers. So there's not a whole lot of just opportunity or actions due each day, but they got 197 scheduled. So they're pacing that follow-up. They're understanding what that seller needs and when is the best time to talk to them again, which mostly comes from just asking them and then making sure that you show up or call them at that time. Now, these teams also have multiple team members, so I wanted to kind of just break this down, how this looks per person. So it's an interesting stat, which is an average of 95 actions per team member. And these are like high performing teams with, like I said, that make a lot of profit. So it's really intriguing that there's such a low amount of active opportunities for each of those team members. They're really just sharing the load. And that gives them the time to make sure that they can have meaningful relationships with the sellers as they do the follow-up. There's the overdue, 25 per team member, and then schedule or due today kind of breaks down to 4 when I was looking at it for this one specific day, and then scheduled breaks down to 65.
So John, one thing you were mentioning earlier, so you were mentioning the average, and guys, if you guys are just tuning in, what we're looking at is the top 10 teams and their data, and they're generating, you were mentioning, it's well into the millions in wholesale fees, correct?
Correct.
2.5. Yeah, it's well into the millions. And so the average of those top 10 teams are getting about 30 leads a week or so to generate well into the 7 figures of profit. So if you guys are like, man, I'd love to make $250,000 this year, you don't need 30 leads a week. Like that's the thing. You might need 5 leads a week, 2 leads a week, 10 leads a week. It depends on your market. It depends on how well you're able to close those deals and the margins you're able to have. And then like it showed there too, if you're not getting 100 leads a week because they're high quality leads usually, then you don't have to have this big team. Those team members there on average to have a multi-million-dollar business. And we're going to talk with Bo in a second, who does have a 7-figure wholesaling business with a very small team. You don't have to have people picking up the phones and calling 30 people a day when you do follow up the right way. And so that's what we're going to be talking about. How do you automate follow-up better so you can do it with the smaller team and serve those sellers well?
Absolutely. So this is the active pipeline. And so we break down our pipeline, and I showed you that, chart earlier. So qualification, that's how many leads are you trying to understand their situation? Is there a deal here? Is there equity in the property? Whatever kind of, solution that you can provide that seller, is there something that can happen here? There's only 28 of them on average in that section of the pipeline. 223 are in pursue. Those are people I've determined that they are worth me calling again. I know that I should be speaking to them, so I'm going to keep calling them. And I mean, that could range from long-term follow-up to being in the midst of offers, offer negotiation, and offer follow-up. And then we have automated follow-up as well. So 169 average in automated follow-up. And I'll speak to a little bit of that here in a minute about how essential it is to keep your pipeline clean and to try and get people out of these stages, right? You're either trying to get them to a closed deal, or you're trying to say, I'm going to automatically follow up with you, or I'm going to mark you as dead. I'll show you that in just a minute. And then 46 in transaction, 831 dead. So if we just look at that in a pie chart, you can see here, out of the total opportunities that these teams have pushed through our system, the majority of them are marked as dead. They've coded them out, and they've said that these are people that are not worth me following up with anymore, which gives them the ability to focus on the ones that can provide them a deal. Only 2% of the room qualification, 17%. The section in red is the most important. That's where most of the time is spent in the acquisition process, is in that pursue section. And in 13% of them, there might be something there. They're on long-term follow-up, and hopefully they'll bubble back up. Now the interesting thing, so only working 19% of their total leads. So an average is 251 active leads for those teams. It's really just important to keep your pipeline clean and to say, okay, these are the ones that I think have the best opportunity in them, and therefore they are the ones that I'm going to be spending my time on. 83 active leads per person. So I did want to just chat real quick about resurfacing, and I zoomed past that slide there. But this resurfacing is a new feature that we have in InvestorFuse, and it's all about those dead leads. So it is important to code those people out, but just because that they're not interested now does not mean that they won't be interested in the future. And what resurfacing does is it says, okay, why don't you add in some dead reasons, like not interested, wants retail, not interested, doesn't want to sell right now. And then in 6 months, 3 months, a month, whatever time period that you want, we'll bubble those leads back up. They'll be out of your pipeline. You're not going to be worrying about them. They're not going to be actions that you have to do, but they'll come back whenever you tell them that it's time for me to check in with this person and make sure that something hasn't changed for them, because seller situations change all the time. So here is a typical month: 110 opportunities, 24 appointments, 16 offers, and 2.4 contracts, and 3 closed deals. Now, here's the numbers that I want you guys to write down. It's going to be on this next one. 7 average touches per contract. So I went through and looked at all these top 10 teams, all the contracts that they had in. How many touches did it take for them to get that contract? 7 was the average. The low was 3. The high was 16. So we, for a long time, have said 8 is the magic number. You should try 8 times before you even consider saying automated sequence or dead. You should be manually calling, and then if you don't get them on the phone right after that call, sending a text message up to 8 times before you consider an alternative option. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I want to spend a little bit of time on this, and guys, keep the questions coming through. This is definitely very data heavy, and so we were kind of given some context there in the first number of slides to kind of show the actions that are happening. There's a lot of activity. This slide here, though, kind of brings it all together, because we can kind of look at the ratios here. And Bo, I want to throw it over to you here in a minute too, to kind of talk about some of the ratios that you see. But so if there's 110 opportunities or leads, on the data before John was walking through, about 30 a week on average, with the clients, and then that means 24 turned into appointments. So that's about about a 20% ratio from a lead to an appointment. And then of those appointments, you have whatever that is, about 2/3 of them turn into an offer of some sort. And then it goes down into about 10% of those or so. There we go. About 10% of those or so turn into a deal. And so this right here is going to be really valuable, because you guys can start to weigh, if you want to spit out X amount of deals per month, if you want to spit out X amount of deals per quarter, approximately according to the highest performing people across hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of investors, high-level investors using this, what are the high-level investors doing with their ratios? And this is cool. I'll throw it back over to you, John, but this right here, this slide and that last slide they're gold, man.
Yeah. So I did the math for you guys. 37 leads to a closed deal, 45 to a contract. The data is a little interesting here because they had closed deals that came from months ago in follow-up. So it's a little strange there, but just I would say between 40 and 45 is what you should kind of be your your number, right? Based off of these teams that we've gone through and looked at the data, 40 to 45 is the amount of leads that you should be aiming for to get a closed deal.
One thing you have up there too, John, way in this far right, guys, we have closed deals, and then there's 2.4 contracts. Is that where, like, in that month they locked down 2.4 contracts, but they might have had a contract from the previous month that locked down, but it closed in this month, right?
Oh yeah,
so that's what
closing's never quick. I'm sure Bo can speak to that.
Yeah.
So yeah, the close, it could be like months ago that came in.
And then it's 2.7% of opportunities, or 2.7% of the leads turn into deals with this data. Yeah. And so that shows the varying types of marketing. Do we, is there anything in this presentation, or even off the top of your guys' heads, on, like, with these people, what types of marketing they're using for this? Or that can be a future presentation too.
Oh man, I deleted those slides.
No, you're good, dude. You're good.
Hang on, I can get it. Let's do this. So the average profit that these teams were having was 2,800. Yeah, but here's how it breaks down of where those deals were coming from. So other was campaigns that I couldn't, like, they coded it some way I did not understand what it meant. But 22% came from direct mail, 18% came from online, 12% came from bird dogs, driving for dollars, 9% from texting, 9% from cold calling, and 9% from referral.
Cool. And guys, this is key, because this is one of the reasons we're bringing all the marketing pieces together in the summit. And the close ratio, it really fits in with the data that we saw in the reports we've been showing the whole summit, where if you focus on the online side between organic SEO and PPC, you're going to be closing, that 1 in 10 leads into a deal, which is 10% close ratio, which is way higher than 2.8%. But you get your volume from your direct mail, from your driving for dollars, from texting cold. That's where you get your volume, as you guys can see here. Okay, so it's important to have a good mix of all. If you're looking for the volume, if you're looking for the high conversion, high margin, that's where the online side supports that side of it. But this is way cool, dude. Seeing this, the average profit was $282K. That's crazy.
The whole year, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Well, for the year, I got you. Cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
Actually, no, wait. This was a quarter.
Cool.
Oh gosh, I can't remember the date. I think it was about a quarter that I was doing this for these teams.
That sounds about right, because if the average gross revenue was around that 2.5 million, that's about right.
Yeah.
About 30% profit, 33.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, that was the basis of the data, and it was a little data heavy, but I thought it would be good to just kind of start with some hard facts, and specifically give you guys that are watching some numbers for you to try and hit. And so that 40 to 45 leads equals a closed deal. That's what, the top people are able to do. If you're brand new, maybe give yourself a little buffer there, but it gives you something to work towards, and to say that this is what I've got to aim for. This is how many phone calls I have to do. And if I can keep doing those phone calls, keep sending those messages, then I can get to that end goal of having that closed deal.
Cool. I like it. I've got a couple questions I want to bring Bo in. So Michael asked this question here. He says, what's your thoughts on the best sequence to market to them? Direct mail first, then SMS. So once someone comes in, let's say, okay, they're in, what is that mix that you guys are finding is working best? I'll toss this to Bo and to John and Carlos to then close that deal. Is there a certain, is it text messages more? Is it emails more? Is it RVMs? What's working best?
Let me say this first. I've never done direct mail in my life, so I can't speak to that, even though I'm looking at this green number here, and maybe because it's green or maybe because it says 22%, it does make me want to maybe dabble in that, but dabbling can be the death. So I have never done direct mail. I've only done cold calling, texting, referrals, online, stuff like that. But for the context of things that we can control, I'm in things that I have, experience with. I'm going to stick with cold calling and texting as our framework for things that we can control inside of our businesses, right? Because the people who are watching this, you're probably a business owner, or you're maybe a CEO of a company or something like that, or you're just getting started in this space, and we want to control the things that we can control, right? As people who are in sales, right? You're talking about a funnel, I believe he asked, and what is the best sequence within that? And since we're talking about sequences, we can control sequences of cold calling and texting. You cannot really control a sequence of online too much, but we can control those things. So I really like, you could do either one of these, and I don't know if there's a right or wrong way here. I think cold calling and texting are both really, really very effective ways. And I like cold calling. I like texting first, and then I like the next sequence to be a cold call. I like it because I can use and say, hey, we sent you a text message last week. And that's something that person who you're speaking with can therefore reference back to a text message. And what they're probably going to say is, hey, I thought that was a scam, or I thought that was somebody else. But I think I would play with that and see what's right for you and your team. But I like that text to then cold call sequence. And I hope that answers your question on that question there.
No, that's good. So once the lead comes in, what's the follow-up sequence, the ideal follow-up sequence look like after that happens? So lead comes in, no matter what source. Yep. You have the initial phone call. Let's assume we're past the initial phone call. We had that call there. What do we do then after that point?
So here's what I like to do. And there's probably a lot of people watching this now live and even a recording that you're probably some level of a salespeople or you manage salespeople. In all good salespeople, let me say this, all good salespeople, if they're worth their salt, they just want to talk to people all day long and they just want to move the ball forward. That is what a salesperson wants to do. They only care about a couple things. Yes, no, and maybe. Like that's all that real salespeople really care about, is they just want to get down to, hey, are we going to do a deal together or are we not going to do a deal together? Yep. So if you're not giving your salespeople enough leads to do that with, then you're going to really struggle with your lead flow and a lot of other things. So keep it in a silo. And I like to really use that as references, as we have silos in our businesses of yes, no, maybe. And then a lot of times inside of those even turns into cold, lukewarm, warm, and then hot, right? So I like, in my mind, this is my sales brain here. What I really love is when I speak to somebody, I want to know, yes, do you want to sell your house? And I don't really care right now. I don't care whether it's a retail lead. I don't care if it's a wholesale lead. I don't care what their motivation is. I just want to know, do you want to sell your house or do you not want to sell your house? So that's the first thing that we have to determine. And that's what we're really looking for, is yes or no. And if it's a yes, then we're going to keep moving that ball forward in pre-qualifying these people and saying, hey, then you're getting into their story, right? You're getting into who they are as people. And a lot of times it takes a long time to get these deals to the closing line, as John had really talked about there for a second. We just closed a deal that was, I think, 5 months. I've been working on this deal weekly. I mean, weekly since last year. And I just closed it. And it has been a royal pain to get this deal to the closing table. And I thought it was dead. I thought it was cold. I thought it was lukewarm at times. And then all of a sudden, boom, it's back alive. But it takes consistent communication all the time to move that ball forward. And whatever that looks like for your sales team, it could be something as simple as piece of paper. It could be a partnering paper with InvestorFuse and saying, hey, we're going to move this ball forward here. We have action, so you can see what your team is doing. So they don't say, hey, we're doing it. And then you'll find out, hey, they're not doing it. Yep. So that is one of the really good tools about InvestorFuse, is that you can find out if they're actually doing the work. So I really like when you're talking to sellers, just making sure that you're getting really good clarification on yes, they want to sell, or no, they don't want to sell. If they don't want to sell, like John said, it could mean not now. It doesn't mean not ever. It just means, as a good salesman should view it, even if you say no, don't ever call me back. To me, that still means not now. I could call you back in a year and things might change. So I just like to always always give people a call back. And one of the things I want to reference in John's presentation here is he gave this big bell curve like thing. And the biggest part of the bell curve was the follow-up, right? The follow-up was one of the biggest parts of this whole thing. And so the follow-up portion of that, it could have been from a year ago. It could have been from 2 years ago, that those leads could be sitting around and actually be there from years ago. And that if you have a good salesperson, your salesperson should be on the phone with those people all of the time saying, hey, we spoke to you July 3rd, 2017. We just want to see if you still want to sell your property or not. And they'll say, oh my God, I'm so glad you called me today. I was just thinking about selling my house last night. It's one of those kind of things. So your salespeople, you should always be setting them up to say, hey, here's a list of people. And by the way, don't prejudge these people on your past, reading the notes. Don't prejudge when you read something. Oh, they were grumpy. If you're watching this and you're a business owner, that is the first thing that will kill a deal is prejudging a lead. So just get your salespeople in there, and just go through there and call, and then starting all over again, treat it like a fresh lead, and then figure out if these people should go to the next level. It's cold now. Should it go to warm? Is it cold now? Should it go to high? Yeah, they want to sell right now, or should we put it back into the thing of follow up for the future?
Dude, one thing I want to point out there, Bo. So you were mentioning in that follow-up chunk, being able to bring some of those leads that didn't turn into a deal early back up, and you were saying, hey, we got to make sure to give the sales team a list of people to call. One of the cool things that the Investor Fuse guys had built was the resurfacing John had just mentioned, to where you can set certain criteria. I'm going to toss it over to you, John and Carlos, to explain it, because you can set certain criteria to say, hey, these types of leads, bring them back into my salespeople's list by this time. And what happens with a lot of people is we set these leads under this never-ending email sequence, and we kind of forget about them with the human touch. And so that's the question: is when and which leads do we actually want to bring back into the bucket for our teams or for ourselves or for a one-man or one-woman shop? Which ones do we want to bring back in just like a new lead? Say, hey, this one's here now. You should probably call this person again and go look at these notes and check it out. John, why don't you explain what you guys are doing with the resurfacing? Because that alone, I think, is very, very important. And have you guys kind of found, or what does Brandon do on the time period that he wants to resurface leads?
Yeah, it's a really interesting new feature. And so there's still a lot of data that we have to gather on, what works. But, our initial kind of hypothesis going in is you want to do manual follow-up until, like Bo was saying, that you understand that yes, no, maybe. And then once you get that yes, no, maybe, you know where to go forward. And, there could be certain situations where somebody says maybe, and that's a great time for some automated follow-up. Because it can, you can put them on a sequence that's specifically designed towards their situation. And that's what we recommend for people. You build a sequence, and then you clone that sequence, and you say, all right, this sequence is now going to be for those that are absentee owners, or these are going to be now for tax issues. And so your messages are speaking to their situation. So that's kind of a tip number one there with sequences. But those are kind of like those maybes, because that's great time for that, because they're still like thinking about it. But you get that no, you then need to analyze that no. Because like Bo was saying, it could be that it's no right now, but that does not mean it's not no in a little while. So, I mean, retail, like somebody says, no, I'm going to try and go for retail. I'd mark them as dead, and I'd say not interested once retail, and I'd bounce that back in 30 days. I mean, we all understand what the real estate market is right now. They'll know within 30 days if that was successful or not. And it's time for to talk to them again. If they say, I'm not interested in selling my house at all, or I'm trying to save it from bankruptcy or whatever, mortgage, doesn't matter. You could set that out 60, 90 days. And bounce it back. And it really comes to kind of playing with it. And that's the great thing about our system, and being able to set multiple dead reasons, because then you can easily understand the data. Okay, I called this person 90 days after saying that, they're trying to save it from bankruptcy. And that was too short. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make that 180 days. whatever it might be.
Dude, that right there is really cool, because what I want you guys to do is write down a few things. I'm drawing some things on my iPad, just kind of toying with some things here. Whenever I'm trying to process a concept, I start drawing, and I just see if it works. And let me do this if you're cool with it. Unless you have a slide for this, John. If you do, tell me to shut up, and I'll pass it back over to you. So let's say that the lead comes in, and we have a lead over here. So it's not yet a deal, obviously. And then we have the deal over here, which that's green. That's good. A lead is, let's say it's blue, nice and fuzzy. It's not a red yet, right? But the lead comes in, and let's kind of look at both where we want to nudge a person on our team to make a call or make an outreach, and where we want to bring in automation. Okay, so the lead comes in. We immediately have that person collect the phone call, hop on the call with them, and whatever. And let's say that this chunk of people are in the follow-up bucket, and they're not ones that immediately closed into a deal. Okay, so that was a live person. We tried to make an offer or whatever, or it's in the follow-up, and now it's here. Do we now, do we send them emails? Do we send them text messages? What parts do we automate? And then how often should we automate those? And then where should we bring that human back in?
So my suggestion Carlos could probably speak to this. You should be manually touching that lead 8 times, times at a bare minimum. And I like to say, start spreading it out a day. And multiplying that. So you're going to wait a day and call them again. And then you're going to wait 2 days, and then you can wait 4, and then 8. But really, you got to find that pace that you can handle with the amount of leads that you have in your system and the time that you have. Because when you start to get to that point where you can't reach your follow-ups at the time that you said that you were going to follow up with them, then you have a problem. Maybe that's hiring somebody. Maybe that's spreading out your follow-up a little bit longer. But you want to make sure that you're able to equally touch everybody and, not have leads fall through the cracks.
Okay.
Yeah,
I like that. And then where does the automation part come in? So there's automation here for sure, where, like you're saying, it adds a task back to the person who's logging in. So this is the beautiful thing about going with that type of next action management, is when you log in, it literally tells you what you need to do. And that's the struggle most people have, is you log into something and you have 35 leads sitting there from the past 90 days. We're like, I guess I should get a hold of this person possibly, or maybe this person. And that at that point's probably when you need to start looking at some sort of a system to help manage your leads better. If you're getting a handful of leads a month, and we've had people come here to Carrot Camp that did multiple 6 figures a year, and it was literally on a whiteboard and a piece of paper. Like literally it was just that. Brian Rockwell came in. People were like, how did you make $600,000 in your second year? He was like, this right here. It's a yellow notepad in my in my whiteboard. But he said, yeah, but I definitely know I lost some deals because I didn't have the right follow-up in place, and I wasn't, fully organizing things. I definitely lost some deals. I could have done $700,000 or $800,000. And so when we start to build an automation, it's when you either are starting to build a team and everything can't be on that scratch pad of yours. You need to have one spot where everything goes to, or you just want to be able to log in and have the system have all the brain, like have the brain be in the system. The system is the brain, where you already have a schedule to say, hey, when I mark a lead dead and it's a retail lead and I'm an investor, like John said, I want to tell this system to be the brain to resurface it and put it back in my lead bucket in 30 days to call them back up and see how they did. You're not going to remember that if you have 35 leads sitting there, let alone 300. So the system is your brain, and then it can actually do some of the automation for you with text messages and emails. And so you'd mentioned, John, do a follow-up every day for 8 days for sellers. And guys, I think this applies for retail as well. Just really follow up with them with content and build trust and value. And you're mentioning a lot of those are kind of potentially that live outreach. At what point do we do an automated text message, or is that kind of what you're referring to as well as some of these follow-ups during that 8 days?
Yeah, no, I would not do an automated follow-up in those 8 days. I would call them each time, and then send them a text message after I call them, cool. Or maybe shake that up and do a text and email if you have both their phone number and email address. But you want to, because the thing is you can always speak more intelligently when you're doing it manually than when you put it in an automated sequence. And that first attempt to try and get that person on the phone, it's really important that you don't come off sounding like a machine. And so the ability to give them a call, and then the way our system works is like we have call attempt tasks. So you go from call new lead, and then you go through 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 call attempts. So all those actions are built in the system, and every time you go into that action, it asks you, did you reach the seller? Yes or no? And you say no, then it says, all right, call attempt the next one. And it presets the day in there for when you're supposed to call. But right below that, you could then just open up a menu and then write them a text message that says, hey, I just left you a message. And I have some sample text messages I do want to share with everybody here at the end, so that you guys make sure that you write the right messages. But yeah, it's after that 8, then I'd be like, okay, now it's time to do just an automated sequence. And maybe that automated sequence has some manual phone calls in it as well. That's possible within our system. But those first 8, you should really be doing yourself.
This is good, man. I like it. So this right here, I think, really helps people to see that lead comes in, really heavily focused on it manually. And Bo said the same thing. I remember, Bo, one of those first deals that we closed, you mentioned you texted and called like 40, 50, 60 times in like a month or something.
So let me say something here, that once you first have your first personal communication with somebody, right? Your first communication, let's just say the person they say, yes, I want to sell. Like they talk to you for a minute, and then something happens and you can't get a hold of them again, right? And that let's just create this scenario that we have right now, that like what you're looking at right now, that we've talked to this person and now that we cannot get a hold of them for some reason, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where some of these other things would have gone. You've called and called and called and called and called, and you cannot get a hold of this person. So let me just tell you like a little bit of the seller psychology. Is that okay, of like what's happening in somebody's mind? Because I'm very positive like this is what's happened a lot of times. And now I've talked about this publicly before, but let's just say that you've spoken with somebody and then all of a sudden they ghost you completely. They have good intentions, but they're at Lowe's, they're picking up their kid from school, they're getting donuts on a Saturday morning, they're eating dinner with their families, they are working, and every time they're in the middle of something and you call them, right? Or your salesperson calls them or whoever, they're in the middle and they get really, it's like you get embarrassed, right? How many times have you ghosted somebody on a text message and oh my gosh, I've got to call this person back. But the longer it goes between communication, you get really embarrassed because you've just been busy and it just seems like you're really putting them off, but you're not. So when you got to bring back in a personal touch and you got to give them an opportunity to save face. Cool. And so that's in the resurfacing part. You've got to resurface again and say, hey, I've had, what I like to do is I like to fall on the sword. This is one of my methods. I call it like the fall on the sword method. Hey, I had some funds open back up and I'm able to buy your home again. I'm not sure if you're actually thinking about selling it again. I'm sorry, I was been so hard to reach, right? You're going to pull it back on you. I like to use this kind of language in my sales, in my follow-up. I know I've been really difficult to reach. And if you've got some time in the next 24, 48 hours, I'd love to hop on the phone with you and just see if you're open to selling your property again. And opening up that line of communication where you're not placing all of the blame, but you're taking it yourself, and it's giving you an opportunity again to this lead that was warm, then it went ice cold. You're going to go back at it in a warm sense. And a lot of times you can pull these leads right back to you.
I like it. I love it. John, why don't you, I'll take my screen share down. Why don't you show some of the text messages? And then Santosh is asking how much time does the system require per day? One thing that could help too is if you have an account pulled up, maybe let's look at a lead where it shows like the records and the follow-ups that have happened if you have one of those available. Bo's an Investor Fuse client as well. And then we can kind of show like, how does that happen? The system shows, hey, the text went out, this note happens here, and here's the next text. That would be kind of cool, because I think the big thing is people might be also looking at this going, oh my gosh, look how much work this is. Well, guys, this should take work away. If you're getting any volume of leads, you set up the initial criteria, and then it spits the messages out for you, or it spits the tasks or the actions back to you. So you just log in and do what the system tells you to do. Rather than having to search for and hope and like wonder, what the heck do I need to do with all these leads? You literally log in and the system will tell you exactly what you need to do. So let's do the screen share over to John. We'll share what do you put in text messages according to the data that's working now, and then maybe a few minutes to show kind of what an active record might look like that is being managed right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So at the top of the screen here, if you guys are remotely interested in learning more, you can book a demo with Carlos. He hasn't got to speak much, but he's amazing and knows so much about all of this and can guide you through more. We also have a masterclass. It's all about converting leads, which is kind of a little bit about that follow-up. If you email him, his email's up there. He'll give it to you for free. And it's going to be pretty awesome. But communicating with sellers via text is a little bit of a pet peeve of mine. And because I feel that when people are writing these text messages, you're just in the mindset of, I got to send the same text message to the same types of people over and over and over and over and over again. And you're not thinking about how does that look on that seller's end. So here's a message. I don't know, I can't zoom, but it basically every single message, they say, hey, hi, Corey, this is John from Investor Fuse. Want to talk to you about your property. The next one, hi, Corey, this is John reaching out again from Investor Fuse. Still interested in selling your house? John from Investor. They know who you are. They got the thread. It's in the first message. You don't need to send the same content every time. Instead, shake up your messages. Your first message can have that, hi, my name is John. I just left your voicemail. Kind of talk about what Bo was saying earlier, where you relate to another method of communication. So you give yourself some validity about your house on Main Street, wanted to chat with you about any interest in selling your house. And then from there, your messages can be short, they can be sweet, they can add just a little bit of context onto why you're reaching out, because every single time that you send them that message, they have the rest of your thread above to read and gain more context. So always put yourself in the shoes of that seller and looking at that thread and being like, okay, is this a spam thread or is this somebody who's really reaching out and trying to converse with me? And that is just like that, being genuine in your texts, not making them long, and building a conversation is the best way to send those text messages and get the best response back. Because we all get those texts from spam places, and you can tell that they just mail merged you into a text message. Yep. So don't appear like that.
Yep. And you don't feel bad about ignoring that either, because you're like, there's not a person on the other end of this thing, so I'm going to ignore it. But like what Bo was saying, when people are in a spot where, especially for many motivated sellers, that I remember Bo saying this years ago, it's like they're in that spot because they probably didn't make some good decisions. And if we're coming at them with an automated looking message, it's so easy to continue making that decision when it doesn't feel like they're failing anybody, right? And Bo is like the master at great follow-up with that. So guys, here's a couple things. We've got a few minutes on this one here. Do you have an account record that you could pull up on your end, John? Possibly just to show, if not, what they can do is they can go connect with Carlos and check out a demo. But I think the main thing that I want to show you guys is this, and the decision I want you guys to look at is this. Is number one, I always suggest starting really, really simple with everything, lead management, everything like that, okay? And you only need to get a fully functional CRM until you have enough leads that you can't do your job well, right? Like if there's leads falling through the cracks, if there's deals that you're clearly missing, then you should probably get something taken care of and build a system. But if you're just getting your first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 leads, like guys, don't get the CRM first. You always want to solve the problem that you need to solve, which is let me get leads first, right? Focus on the carrot side of things, focus on the deal machine side of things, get those leads cranking in, and use our simple carrot lead manager for the starter, deal machine simple lead manager for the start. But then as you start to grow, you go, okay, I'm adding a team member, or I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing with these 35 leads that are in follow-up every day. And you want the system to do the work for you, where it's like, hey, Trevor, I'm logging in. I have these 4 tasks today. Call this person and text them, update this, and send this contract out. cool, I got my 4 things to do. Now I got to go get more leads, right? So that's when you should be looking at a system like that, but it shouldn't be the first thing that you guys should do. So is there anything we can show? If not, dude, we'll send people through to connect with Carlos.
Yeah, no, I've got something pulled up, but definitely connect with Carlos if this looks interesting for you guys, because he can walk you through this in a lot more detail. So, yeah, I mean, let me just speak real briefly to the kind of information that this provides. I'm sitting here on an opportunity, which has a Google Street picture of Dollapalooza, which is interesting. But you get just like a lot of data up front that, you know, and to Trevor's point, like you should not be looking at the CRM until you have lead flow. I'll be like, you know, I love to have customers, but it's a waste of your money because you got to feel that pain point, and that pain point does not start occurring until you can't remember every detail about a lead. Use that yellow pad, write the things down. You know, it's book things on your calendar. If you've got a small lead count, then it's really easy to do that simply. But then when you start to like forget things and be like, oh, wait, what was this lead? What was their details? And you're like flipping through 15 pages of notes. That's when it's time to start looking at a system like this. And you could see, you know, when was the last time I touched this person? It was 10 months ago. There was 36 touches up to that. It was created a year ago. There's just different data points that will populate in here. You've got the entire communication log here. So this is showing you every text message, every comment, every follow-up, everything that you've ever done on that lead will be here. Now, the really cool thing about our system is the action-based system. So it's one action at a time, right? So this is a new lead, and I come in here, and if I get any notes from my lead source, I can just pop open the notes and read what's there. So like if you had a Carrot web form and there were some details that populated from that, they can populate right there into the notes. And then I'm going to call that lead. As soon as I don't get them on the phone, or if I do, I choose the outcome, right? So I couldn't reach the seller. All right, well, then the next thing that you need to do is call them again, okay? And you're gonna do that tomorrow, all right? And then these instructions are a really important part to helping you stay on top of the amount of leads. And it's literally like, what did I do last time? And therefore, what do I need to do next time? So left them a voicemail was full, or whatever you want to say, context around your messaging. And once you get like actually get that lead on the phone for the first time, these instructions become way more important. It's like, you know, they were going to chat with a lawyer to review the contract. So you put those notes in the instructions so that what will happen is when I complete this action, the next time that I open this and the call attempt 2 comes in my due today actions, the instructions are right here. And I can see what was it that I told myself last time that I needed to do. But I mentioned earlier too, like how easy is it to send a text message? So I've got all these details here. I didn't get them on the phone again. So I'm going to do it again tomorrow. I can just come in here and send a text message. Hi there, just left you a message or voicemail. Let me know a good time to call back. So I can complete that action because I just got off the phone. I left them a voicemail saying, what do I need to do next? And then I'm sending that text over to that seller right then and there so that it's all, and it'll all be logged. And so you don't have to remember it all. Everything's going to be there. And I don't know whose phone number this is, so I'm not going to send the click send. That it's as simple as that. It's just log in and do your actions. And that's what people really love about this system is they don't have to have the decision point of what do I need to do today? Because I've already told myself what I need to do today. Or there's new leads that I have to call. So it's just log in and get to zero. It's kind of treating your CRM like an inbox zero mentality.
Dude, one of the things that's really cool too, and then we'll move to a wrap in this session. We're going to keep Bo here. We're going to dive into negotiation is especially as you're building teams. That's one thing that we've really found is crazy effective. If you're like Chris Chico, if you're virtual wholesaling in multiple markets, or you have a business that's in multiple markets, or you're an agent and an investor, and you have different teams for those, but you have a bunch of salespeople, and you don't want all the salespeople to look at the same leads. They have a Teams function now. It's really, really cool where you can separate and go, well, shoot, this is my Orlando team and my Miami team, and the Miami team can't see the Orlando leads and vice versa. So you can really keep them focusing on their chunk of leads. Or you have a new salesperson that just came in, and that salesperson, you don't want them getting the best leads. You don't want them getting the carrot leads. You want those to go to the experienced salesperson. And maybe that new person, you only want them to have 5 active leads at any given time. And if they don't follow up with those, by a certain day that you mark, those leads go now to the rest of the sales team to tackle and get them to do it. And so, especially as you build teams, guys, something like this is really how you streamline things really, really well. So I'd suggest you guys hit up Carlos, Carlos at investorfuse.com. You guys get that lead conversion masterclass completely free. They're giving it to you guys completely for free. So we can just train you how to do better with the lead conversion. And as you go, as you start to generate more and more leads, and Carrot's working great for you and other marketing is, go check out InvestorFuse, and it'll help you save a lot of time, get that automation cranking. And even if you're not ready for it now, like, dive in and do the research so you know when you're ready, which tools are going to be the ones that are going to be able to help you out, which is awesome. Well, we got to wrap to the next session. But guys, I appreciate you coming on big time, John, Carlos, Bo, and any parting words before we wrap and move to the negotiation session. We got 2 more sessions left of the summit. Tom Ferry's coming up to close us off, guys. Biggest real estate influencer in the market, and we've got John Martinez and Bo coming up to talk negotiation next. But any parting words?
Well, let me
I
say
think
this.
Carlos should, or I was going to say Carlos should part because he's like got to say
I wanted to have Carlos say something, on this as well. So, Carlos, go ahead.
Man, there's just such great real estate minds here. Amazing to see Trevor. Always good to see Bo. We were talking food via text last night. But I always think of a great CRM kind of like taking an insurance policy out on your marketing. You guys are working hard to generate these leads, paying for these leads. You do not want to lose any deals from lack of following up manually, phone call, and automated. You guys are going to learn different exit strategies. You guys are going to learn how to convert leads better from Bo and John Martinez. But a great CRM is like taking out a insurance policy on your marketing, all the leads that are coming in from Carrot. I'll be happy to talk sequences. I'm a little bit different philosophy than John. I'm a little bit more aggressive. And I like to do a few things in a world where we're getting like inundated with automated messages, like the ones John was screen sharing. I would love to chat with you guys about some tips and tricks. Like you can put typos in there and then send a text message with the correct wording a minute later. It's going to completely pattern interrupt sellers that you're reaching out to. Differentiate yourself from other investors. You can do other things in InvestorFuse, like you can leave an automated ringless voicemail in sequence, and then a minute later have it programmed to say, just left a voicemail with you, give me a call whenever you get this, have a great day. If it's Carrot leads that's coming in, you can even put emails, even if it's a cold lead. Keith Sam, my guy, I want to shout you out earlier. If it's a cold lead, or like the lead we were going over earlier, the retail one, you guys have Carrot sites. You can put credibility kits in there, link them back to that. Max Maxwell was on earlier. Like him and some Carrot members have like ebooks on how to do something specific in a specific county. That is such simple stuff that you can get in place. And if it gets you one more deal per year, it's going to pay for your Carrot and your InvestorFuse. So would love to chat with you guys. Looking forward to it. Amazing event here. I've been checking in the last 2 days. So absolutely amazing as always. And awesome to see you guys.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Guys and gals, let's send them off with an amazing thank you there. And Carlos, dude, we need to get you back on for sure to really dive in deep on things from your perspective on the system. John, thank you, man. And Bo, we'll hang out with you here for a few minutes longer.